Contrary to popular wishes, we haven't all been dissected for spare parts of Steve Jobs. This is the 111st episode of the TuxRadar podcast. I'm Paul Hudson.
I'm Mike Saunders.
I'm Andrew Gregory.
And I'm Graham Morrison.
And in this episode, we're talking about Nvidia having a go at Android on Linux smartbooks, whatever they are. Mono comes to Debian. The hot topic is sound a complete disaster on Linux and our open ballot. Should geeks boycott closed platforms? Of course, this podcast is every 2 weeks available from TuxRadar.com, where we publish news, features and more when we feel like it, when we're not on holiday. Check it out today and bookmark it, please. And of course, if you want to subscribe to the Linux format, you can go to tinyurl.com/podcastlxf and get a great deal.
And now to the news. This fortnight, apparently Android isn't up for smartbook duty. Debian includes Mono in Debian Squeeze, which is version 6.0, and there's 3 big software releases on the horizon. Firefox 3.5 is about to come out, Crossover 8 and Opera 10 are already with us. Android, apparently Mike Rayfield, who is the general manager for Nvidia's mobile business unit, says that Nvidia prefers Windows CE, that's Windows Compact Edition, to that other thing, Android. Why might he say that? Is it all innocent, or are there ulterior motives, such as Nvidia working closely with Microsoft
on every other platform?
on their ARM GeForce hybrid thing?
Yes.
Yeah, considering the state of Windows CE, I think that is a real insult.
Well, apparently it's a rock-solid operating system that has been shipped billions of times.
Yeah, I've got billions.
Yeah.
I think that's all true.
Yeah.
Well, because the CE is very popular on bank machines, ATMs,
right,
and mobile phones as well. It is rock solid because
Stone Age,
yeah, it's rock solid. It's really dated. It's really old. It doesn't do very much. But presumably, if Nvidia is going to create their own platform, on top of that, their own GUI or whatever, what you want is a really rock solid, really dull platform to build on because it can't really, get in the way.
Yeah.
This Nvidia integrated ARM and graphics processor thing is called Tygra.
Tygra, yeah.
Which may or may not be about to be incorporated into Microsoft Zune.
The Zune, I've heard of that. What's that?
Wasn't Tygra one of the ThunderCats?
That was I can't remember. Oh, memory fail.
It'll be on the post-podcast notes later, I'm sure.
Too much.
Somebody Wikipedia that quickly.
Too much old age.
Yeah, Windows CE is on their phones, and it's really bad. So for Linux to be worse than that, I think requires some actual effort.
Has anyone from Intel criticised Android?
Well, they've got Moblin, so they probably remain partisan to that and keep their mouth shut. I haven't heard anything.
So which runs on a different kind of processor, doesn't it?
Atom focused.
Intel has Atom.
Yeah. Well, that's the amazing thing, ARM is the only thing Windows CE does really well. Your XPs, your Vistas and Windows 7, they don't run on ARM. So this is actually a place where we have the drop on Microsoft, the sole ownership of the area on Microsoft, because all that work the Debian guys have been doing for years, or the NetBSD guys to make all our software work cross-platform, it's finally going to pay off, because you can port large chunks of our standard distro to ARM fairly easily, and then obviously just add tweaks to it later.
So what's the definition of a smart book then?
Smartbook is apparently a powerful netbook, high-end, GPU accelerated netbook, very very powerful, very thin.
Is that like a laptop?
Yeah, except it's smaller presumably. Yeah.
A small laptop.
Yeah, it's a non-crap netbook,
right?
Non-low-end netbook, not a cheap netbook, a powerful netbook.
So they will outperform the Atom, or
yeah, well they were saying ludicrous things like was it 14 hours on ARM CPUs, crazy stuff like that, because ARM has always been power friendly and remains power friendly, and that's something I think Linux can really do well. ARM
wasn't the ARM developed by people from Acorn?
Yes,
wasn't it one of those things?
Yeah. Acorn Research Machine, something like that.
Yeah, and actually ARM themselves have said Android needs more work. We're aware of this.
Well, it is. I mean, in comparison, in terms of its length of life,
exactly, lifetime.
Yeah, that's the word.
Android was last year.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Windows CE is very old.
6 months after Google had announced it.
Yeah.
Well, Stone tablets are very stable, aren't they?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So thanks to the Debian chaps for all their sterling work on ARM. Perhaps less enthusiastic gratitude for them including Mono in Debian Squeeze. Now, this is because Tomboy has apparently been accepted as a dependency for GNOME, and Tomboy requires mono. It seems like an odd choice for Debian to include mono in Debian. I mean, they are the crowd that renames Firefox and turns it into iSqueezer because Firefox isn't free enough. But apparently mono is free enough.
I think they're looking at it in terms of if they've gone from 1 DVD to 2 DVDs, it's okay. But going from 19 to 20 is irrelevant. It's just some more software as far as they're concerned.
So this is a bloatware issue then. It's not about freedom.
I'm not sure. Obviously, for them to say it's free is very important. I think for the community to accept that it's free.
Yeah.
And the thing is, what the bits they're using, bits Tomboy uses, are all fairly standardised. They're all standardised completely, and obviously it uses GTK for doing the drawing and stuff, not Windows Forms. So it's all open. I'm not sure what the problem would be, apart from it's Microsoft.
But aren't the Fedora team reconsidering its inclusion for Fedora 12?
They don't like it for RHEL, yeah. They're really scared of it for Red Hat Enterprise Linux.
Right.
Probably
So
because of the patent issue.
Yeah, because we've talked about it previously, not on the podcast, but elsewhere, where when someone says to Microsoft, "Go on, if Linux really has these patent issues, tell us the patents, and otherwise it's just FUD." And Red Hat say, "Yeah, we're a bit scared of mono. We're not going to tell you why we're scared of it. We're not going to say what the patent problems are. We'll just say we're scared of it." And that's basically reverse FUD. It's very impressive, I think.
Yeah.
Well, Debian also plans to drop GTK1 and
GTK1
to make space for mono.
and also KDE 3.5.
That's probably an even more contentious
a brave
decision.
Yeah.
So KDE users have to move to GNOME.
There is actually a side point. Someone's ported Tomboy to C, so it doesn't require mono anymore. It's a complete rewrite, I guess, which is cool because it gets same functionality. It doesn't really need mono to run. It's nothing special about mono that lets it run. It was just faster to make it, I guess, originally. So using mono as some sort of prototyping system and switching to C.
Is Tomboy really worth it? From what I've seen, it's it's pretty standard.
It's not worth it.
No.
Well, there's already something called GNotes. Or maybe G-Notes.
Who knows?
Or
G-Edit.
Yeah.
I know that's the problem. You've got this muscle memory that says you must have to-do.txt on your desktop. You've got a folder called junk, which you put all your desktop icons into once a week or whatever it is. And we all do it, but we know it's not the best way of working. Whereas Tomboy seems smarter. It seems better. And we know
It's a lovely idea.
Yeah. Wiki on a stick, by the way, is very good. If you don't fancy using Tomboy, Wiki on a stick is a single file which you just run, and it modifies itself and actually has AES encryption as well. It's very cool.
And it doesn't use mono.
Does it use mono? No, I think it's a simple little script. It's very cool.
Well, give it a go.
Like Windows CE, I found that bits of paper are stable and cross-platform, so I use those. Moving on, Firefox 3.5 is just around the corner. Crossover 8 and Opera 10 have just been released. If news equals fact times importance, what is the importance element of this, Mike?
Thanks, Andrew. The importance factor is, I haven't tried Opera 10, but Firefox 3.5 is supposed to have a new JavaScript engine in it. Grease Weasel
Trace Monkey.
Trace Monkey. I knew it was going to be something like that.
Grease Weasel's good though. That should be something else.
Should we start a project called Grease Weasel? All suggestions welcome. So, yeah, I think that's...
Yes, but the Windows version is still 15% faster.
Oh,
Says some man.
says somebody.
Wasn't that Firefox 3.1? What made the big difference?
3.5. They rebranded it. It's so big.
Oh, right, because...
It's so important. Grease Weasel.
nothing to do with Microsoft releasing Internet Explorer.
8.
Firefox 2009, that's what it should be.
Yeah, the problem is that means you have to try and get it out soon. That puts a limit on how long they can delay it for.
So just do a Mandriva and call it Firefox 2010.
Yeah. Well, I've been running it, and I think, as I said in the last podcast, and yeah, it's fine. It's quick.
No, last podcast you said you were running Chrome.
Oh, yeah, that's true. It must have been the time
This
before
is
that.
why your PC's broken.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
run 3.5 RC2 and Chrome Alpha 5 and this kind of crap.
But yeah, it was the podcast before, wasn't it? Because you corrected me on my pronunciation
There you
of
go.
its Japanese name that I'm not going to bother embarrassing. Yeah, but it does seem a lot faster. Maybe not as fast as Chrome, But yeah, good improvement.
Is it 30% faster, which is the bold claim that the Opera 10 developers are making for their new rendering engine, which is called Presto.
Is that 30% faster than Opera 9.5?
It's 30% faster than Presto 2.1,
right?
Which is what they were using up until 9.5.
963 or whatever it was previously.
I've not had a chance to try it, but Opera is a really underrated browser.
Yeah.
Browser? It's got a web server.
Yes, it's got a web server.
It's got a BitTorrent, it's got a chat client, it's got a mail thing, it's becoming Emacs.
Yeah. The web server thing sounded really good, actually, from what I read about it on Slashdot. The fact that it was really easy to run. Point and click, select a couple of options, and you can host a few pages for your friends and family.
Is there a HTML editing element to Opera then? So you can do it all in one?
Not the last time I looked, no, but there are plenty of drop-in things you could run a web server off. You don't have to get into hand editing these days if you don't want to.
I think it lets you make Dropbox as well for your friends, so they can upload files to you very easily, and other features like that, which is quite nice. It seems like a smart feature for an internet-connected person to have, but it's still closed source, so we're not going to use it.
We're not going to use it. And finally, do we care about Crossover 8?
Well, on the web browser front, sticking with the theme we've got going on, it supports IE7.
Oh. Wow!
Good work, lads. Have they spotted IE8's out, do you think?
That's great. So that's how much we care about it then, really.
Well, no, to be fair, IE7, IE itself is obviously used in lots of programs on Windows.
Yeah.
So it'll just generally support compatibility improvements across the board. So yeah, we don't care that much, actually. Also, it's got Quicken 2009.
Which lots of people are,
People
really
do care
keen
about.
on. Yeah.
We don't care about it. We know the world does care about it.
Yeah.
Microsoft Office 2007, I think, was in there too.
That's been in the previous version. I think, but there's working refinements, constantly fixing it, making it better. And that should help everyone. I think fixes to Office, fixes to IE are fairly core Windows fixes, I think. Core wine fixes, so everyone will benefit. And now it's time for our hot topic. This is indeed a topic so hot it leaves McDonald's apple pies in the freezer. What is the state of sound on Linux? Fortunately, we have an expert on Linux sound here in this podcast, which is Mike. No, it's Graham Morrison. He likes Linux sound.
Oh, I do, but
or at least he knows a lot about it.
In answer to your question, it is woeful, terrible.
So the question basically was, what is the state of sound on Linux?
The state of sound on Linux is false.
What's that? Is it moo? You can't possibly answer a question because it would incriminate yourself.
It's terrible. It's full of great potential, as it has been for about the last 6 or 7 years, but that potential remains completely unplundered.
Can I start the rant timer?
Well, it's just so complicated.
Yes, I agree. It's definitely complicated. A while back, we had someone on the phone calling out for support, and we tried to record what they were saying because we thought it was hilarious, and we couldn't. We couldn't actually do it. We plugged it into Mike's laptop and said record, and it wasn't recording, and we didn't understand why.
Just fired up Audacity, and suddenly the trillion layers of Linux sound got in the way, and
nothing happened.
Is that when I phoned up because I'd forgotten my password?
It's you, is it, Andrew?
I thought I could hear you all laughing at me.
I mean, with the Pulse Audio menu installed on your GNOME desktop, you have, when you click on it, you see the option to change the default server, the default sync, the default source, configure the local sound server. You can choose between ULSA, Port Audio, Fado, OSS. It's just crazy.
Huh?
All I want's a mute button.
Yeah, all we want.
Volume up, volume down.
Most people just want to listen to their music, and Pulse Audio is fantastically powerful. Shouldn't be exposed to the user like that. Nobody really cares. We just want a simple volume control, a mute button, and press play on Rhythmbox or Amarok, whatever, and you listen to your music.
So how has it got to this stage then? Like the transition from X386 to X.org, that went really cleanly and smoothly. It didn't leave a massive amount of debris around. I think, why are we in this mess now?
I think it must be something to do with the nature of audio programmers, the audio developers. They want to start with a really nice idea, like they want to simplify audio on Linux. Mm-hmm. But to do that, they have to take on every possible outcome. So they make it so modular that they spend so long thinking about sources and syncs and default sound servers that they never actually get around to making sure that you can play back music in Amarok while you're editing a file in Audacity.
What you're saying is really they should just give up what they're doing and go and work in KDE, because it sounds like they're well suited for that particular job.
Possibly. I mean, it's terrible to bring Apple's OS X into it, but I have no idea how complex or how simple core audio is. But it just plays music. You plug in a sound card, default sound device is changed automatically. It's brilliant. We've got the capabilities. We've got all the technology there on Linux. It just doesn't do that. What should be the easiest part.
So OSS is dead, right? It's dead long ago.
OSS is dead, but still knocking around.
And Arts is dead.
Arts is dead.
DSD's dead.
ESD is dead. Yeah.
Ulcer?
Oh, no, Ulcer is the current. It's the equivalent of the driver in the Linux kernel.
Ulcer works.
Ulcer is the current.
And Pulse Audio.
Pulse Audio sits on top of Ulcer.
And Jack.
Jack sits on top of Ulcer. It's Jack and Pulse Audio are at about the same level, but Jack is specifically for semi-professional audio recordings.
And GStreamer?
GStreamer, well, has been replaced by Pulse Audio by lots of people, but you still need it for Cine and MPlayer and other things if you're not using Pulse Audio plugin.
And Phonon.
Phonon can sit on top of Pulse Audio with Ulcer.
It's like some sort of massive Jenga puzzle.
So GStreamer's going away. That's helpful. That's good to know when one's going.
Well, GStreamer I thought was really good.
Yeah,
it had far fewer options.
It was in lots of places. It seemed to be good. And
I don't really know why Pulse Audio has pushed GStreamer aside. I think maybe they're obsessed with this network connectivity. Pulse Audio.
For all those times when a network for a sound card.
I think the main design ethic behind Pulse Audio is that you can play music on one machine and listen to it on another.
Can you just NFS mount dev DSP?
Yeah.
Does that work?
Maybe that's what the plan is. Yeah.
That's Pulse Audio's great solution.
Yeah. So I mean, we've just illustrated it. I think it is a mess.
I was under the impression they all went down to Ulcer.
Well, they do.
Right. So
they do.
Right.
Ulcer is the sound device sitting in the kernel. So everything communicates to the SND_EMU 10K.
And it remixes it there to do multiplexing, whatever you call it.
That knows the hardware capabilities of your sound device. Right. If it's got hardware mixing, then hopefully the Ulcer thing will do it. Pulse Audio does that on a different level.
I think someone drawn a map of this.
Oh. Yeah, maybe we should. So, yeah, hot topic. The state of sound. The fact is that on a geek level, it's wonderful. You can do anything you want. If you want to set up your own custom sound device, you can do that, and you can build a million different complex environments. But for simple music playback, for normal users, it's a mess.
So what you're saying is that you can do anything you want except anything at all.
yeah, because you're going to spend so long setting it up.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not that bad, but that's how I feel about it. If you do want to do low latency audio recording, it's very difficult to get a working jack configuration while you've got Pulse Audio running at the same time. You shouldn't have to worry about pushing one aside or disabling one and all that kind of stuff.
I think the problem I've got with it is I don't really care about Pulse Audio.
Yeah.
I don't want to know Pulse Audio. I want sound.
Yeah.
Your sound card is low, high, muted, whatever. That's what I really want. And when I things like see Pulse Audio or syncs or sources, I just get a bit confused. I don't really care.
So do I.
You're the musician, man. You're supposed to understand this sort of crap.
But people who make music don't want to spend their, they're not the engineers.
Right,
they don't want to go around plugging things in just to make a recording.
I thought Jack was supposed to fix all this. I thought Jack was the wonderful, customizable, reconfigurable thing.
Well, Jack is all those things. It is good, but it's slightly abstract from the audio in that you have to have a Jack compatible application like Rose Garden or Audacity or Ardour, and then those applications can talk to one another through Jack. It's slightly different to Pulse Audio.
Right. So it's designed for inter-process communication.
Yes, It's designed from streaming audio from one application to another, and then it just so happens to stream it back to your sound card.
Right. So Jack's really not part of the equation, is it?
No, not really.
Right.
But
it's just there to confuse us.
But Pulse Audio, it should all be one.
Right. So Jack should be Pulse Audio.
Yeah. It should all be one. Whatever solution they come up with.
Have you managed to get sound to work on your stuff? Do you care? Does it all work for you?
My sound all works first time.
Wow.
I just click on the MP3 or I click on the OGG and it plays, and I'm quite happy.
Yeah, that's all you need, really. Yeah. You actually want.
I can make it louder, and I can make it quieter. I can turn it off.
Have you ever had to open up the Ulcer mixer for your very simple sound device on your laptop? Because if you did, you would see about 18 different sliders.
But then I get scared and then turn it off again.
Yeah, but online,
that's fine. I don't change anything.
The volume thing, and it says, okay, we're adjusting volume up and down. It's making no difference because it's changing some random channel like center. Yeah. What's that? I don't understand. I want louder, please. It doesn't work. I don't understand it. And you try and plug in headphones, sometimes it decides it's not going to work. It doesn't like your headphones, it's using the main output.
I've never had that. The only problem with sound I've ever had was with Turbo Linux.
All those years ago.
Which was, God, how was that? 3 or 4 years ago.
Is it even still going?
I think so, yeah. In Japan.
And for once, the rant wasn't about Python. And either way, we're now at the halfway of our podcast. Still to come, we have Discovery of the Week and our open ballot: should geeks boycott closed platforms?
Okay, it's time for Discovery of the Fortnight.
This is my favourite section.
Well, do you want to? I always ask you if you want to start, but do you mind starting?
I'll
take the initiative.
I'll be the pioneer in this.
Thanks, Mike.
You're welcome, Graham.
What game is it this fortnight?
It isn't a game, actually, although it's still not particularly serious.
Is it an
software
app that sort of simulates the motion of stars?
GNU Hello is really, really cool because it can actually read mail as well. But coincidentally, I did discover a program called Galaxy that simulates the motions of stars under the influence of gravity. You set up a blank screen and you tell the program how many stars you want to appear.
And then you just have to wait.
And then, not in real time. But you can fill the screen with like 600 stars at random and then click play. And it will show an ultra-speeded up version with where the stars, the gravity affecting them, pulls them together. So it looks kind of random and a mess at first, but after a while, after a few minutes, it starts to form a galaxy like a few billion years. Yeah,
what, it looks like a galaxy.
Yeah, it starts to form the familiar spiral type of.
Wow! So you could recreate different kinds of galaxies by putting the stars in different positions.
Well, it seems to put them randomly, but you can change all these parameters. There's a button called God, and you click it, and it says how many stars you want, what kind of gravity, the strength of gravity between them. And so they just start off scattered all randomly over the screen, and then start to come together.
Can you have a black hole at the centre?
I didn't have test out that facility, but there was something where you could put black holes into it. Yeah.
Can you collide galaxies?
Yeah.
This is getting a bit.
You can create a black hole
if they all fall in on one another.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
That sounds good.
Presumably.
Can galaxies collide? Surely the chances of actually two stars...
No, they do. Yeah, they do.
They go right through each other is what I'm saying, because they wouldn't actually collide.
Because of
yeah,
the
but
space
their gravity
interact,
yeah. Okay, that's great. Thanks, Mike.
You're welcome.
It sounds like one of those screensavers from ages ago when I used to run a screensaver.
Oh, it sounds like when you've just made the jump between like Barnard's star and Earth, and you just sit and hang there and wait and spend days and days just watching the stars and the planets move all around.
I really like that as well. Yeah, well, you often have to wait until you can pick up new crew and stuff as well, and or to make sure when you go on the bulletin board to find the black market sellers, make sure there's somebody there who wants to buy you. Give you some robots.
Thanks, guys. And Paul, have you got a discovery?
I've got two things. One of which occurred to me 5 minutes before we started recording this podcast. That's why I wanted to do two quickly. Because I was just tapping away, finish off my podcast notes, and Ubuntu popped up a little box saying there's updates available. It always does. It pops up nowadays, and then pops under, of course. That's the way jaunty works. Yeah, it's annoying. But then it listed in this thing, it listed updates, and I've got a selection here. It was Linux 2.6.28-1 whatever. Then Linux 2.6 generic, then Linux headers generic, then Linux image, Linux image generic, all this crap, rather than just saying Ubuntu 9.04.1 is available to download. I would much rather have that. Now, obviously, I'm aware that security updates have to be important and installed now, but for recommended updates, couldn't they switch to sort of every 2 weeks? 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, and just bundle them together? It's slightly less scary than seeing crap loads of changes. As if I'm going to deselect one of the kernel ones just in case I didn't fancy it, but have the other kernel ones. Yeah, give me the headers, but not the image and the drivers or that kind of thing.
Yeah. The Kubuntu update thing hides the bug fixes and the security updates in a little fold-away list, so you only actually see the applications that you're interested in.
Yeah, well, I think that's the default for new versions of Windows now as well. It says something along the lines of, do you want to just go ahead and install them, or do you want to see the full list?
Yeah.
And, you can just click go, and it'll just not ask you any further questions. You'll just go ahead and install them all, which I think is quite nice. That's a side issue. But the real thing I found, which is actually truly amazing, I think, is Vala. Or Vala. Vala. It is, frankly, awesome. It is a new programming language, kind of like Programming Discovery of the Fortnights, that essentially builds on C#. Takes all the things that C# does right, like type inference, like generics, all those sort of things, nullable types. And monkeys with it just slightly, so it's based off G-object. So everything is GTK focused. All the objects come from G-object. And what happens is, when you compile your Vala code, it doesn't go to Mono, it goes to C. It converts your C# code into C. And that C code is then put through GCC to form native machine instructions. So it's lightning fast. So you get all the power of C# functionality with no mono dependency, which means the Microsoft haters can't, do the baboon screams, and it's fast. It's much faster than mono, which is incredible. And if you can write it in C, you can now write it in Vala. So you can take your C# apps pretty much. You have to make some changes to it because they've made some minor tweaks to, I think, things like delegates are now called signals, which makes sense, and recompile it for C and then onto machine code. So
wow.
It's awesome. It's really awesome. It's only 0.7 point something now, I think. But they've already done bindings to STL and to OpenGL and GStreamer and GTK and WebKit. A lot of the common things for desktop already work with Vala, and you can just start using it, and you get all the fun. You get memory management. It's basically a true high-level application like programming language,
right,
for GNOME. You get all the power of C# without the possibility of mono patent problems.
Have you looked at the C code that this compiles down to then? What it looks like?
That's the thing. You shouldn't have to.
Just out of curiosity.
Yeah, well, it could be really, really ugly C code, but that's probably what I'd write anyway because I hate C code. But it could be anything. But it's just wonderful that you can now get full speed GNOME apps without any worries. It's completely free. Now it raises the question. I've sort of asked Graham and Mike this in the past. Why is it Vala is okay, whereas mono isn't okay? At what point does Vala become legally dodgy? Is it because they copied C# entirely and made some slight tweaks to it? C# 3, not the new 4 one, and made some slight tweaks to it. So if I were to write the class libraries from .NET, system.whatever or this kind of thing, in Vala,
yeah.
Would that be legal? Would that be illegal? Would that be breaking patent problems? Would Red Hat refuse
basically
to
doing what Mono does?
Yeah, just in Vala.
Through Vala.
Through Vala, yeah. If I was to do all the libraries that
one advantage would be if hell did freeze over and something happened with those patents, you'd still have the C source code, and so you'd still have the working applications.
Yeah, you would have the working application, yes. But the thing is, the C source code isn't what you want.
No.
This is part of the GPL thing, isn't it? Don't give people object code, and that essentially is object code. You haven't got the original source code anymore. Yeah. You haven't got what matters to make the application.
That's true.
That's the key. You wouldn't have that. So I'm curious at what point it stops becoming mono, because one of the advantages of C# as it stands, mono, is you've got this wonderful basic class library behind it, and you can do things very, very quickly. Reading, writing files, or networking, whatever you choose, very, very fast. And I don't think Vala has that right now. You have to use libxml2 and its basic stuff there.
Yeah.
It's quite painful. And if I were to port that, if I were to write some simple XML libraries using the same APIs that happen to be in .NET as well, would that be dodgy or not dodgy? I just don't know. At what point is Vala suspicious? So other than that, I think it's absolutely wonderful. It's a proper high-level language for GNOME, designed for GNOME. It's all based off G-object, GTK, WebKit, all that kind of thing. It's all in there now. You can start using it. And Cheese, the GNOME webcam app, was written in Vala. And most people don't even realise.
I didn't know that, no.
Yeah, they don't even realise. It looks like a normal GNOME app. And it is just as fast as any other C written program. I've done benchmarks, and it is just the tiniest fraction behind native C code when it's compiled. It's much faster than C++ code. It's great. Much smaller than C++ code too, so it's just great. I love it. It's a great, great move, and I'm really happy to see it.
Oh, that sounds good.
I hope. Please, come on. GNOME 3, let's standardise on Vala. That would be so awesome. I would love that. I'd really love that.
Yeah, it would be good. I guess it's the legal problems or the possible patent problems.
You can't copyright the language.
No, I know. I mean, this is what we've talked about this before. I agree.
Yeah, C# is what it is because of Java and because of C++.
Yeah.
It's just a logical extension of that.
Yeah, it's like it's more of a technique. If it was art, it would be a certain kind of art.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it's awesome, and I hope it really goes somewhere. Well done, guys. It's great.
Cool. Andrew, do you want to go next?
Yeah. I found the Battle of Hatfield Chase, which was fought in 633 between Edwin of Northumbria and an allied Welsh and Mercian force who fought under Penda of Mercia and Cadwallon ap Cadfan. And I wonder why no one knows. No one seems to have heard very much about it. The Wikipedia article is only a stub, and I've only got up to about page 10 of the ecclesiastical history of the English people. So I've not read that too much about it anywhere.
It can't have been that much of an epic battle then.
How many people died?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know, but Edwin controlled land from the border of Scotland right down to North Wales. So, a third, half of England maybe.
Yeah.
And who knows? Who knows? I don't know. There's nothing there to mark it. There's a pub called the Hatfield Chase, which isn't there's a pub called the Hatfield Chase there. But I wonder if only they'd fought a few miles further up at a place called Thorne Waste, which is the same sort of same topography. It's all sort of marshy land. It's peat bog, but Hatfield Chase sounds very Thomas Hardy. But Thorne Waste, what schoolboy could ignore a battle called the Battle of Thorne Waste?
That's very Lord of the Rings.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
The corpses underneath the marsh.
And in some sad way, this reminded me of Linux naming conventions.
Right, well, that's interesting.
That's your dose of comic relief for the next fortnight.
What were they fighting over?
They were fighting over wealth and power. The same thing that people always fight over.
Wasn't over a girl.
Or WMD.
Don't know. Oil. It's all about oil. No, peat. Obviously, peat bogs.
Well, thanks, Andrew.
Thanks, Andrew.
Yeah, we look forward to your update of the Wikipedia page.
You're welcome.
My pick of the fortnight is a Firefox plugin extension called Cooliris. And it's a really cool bit of eye candy. It's been an extension for Windows and Mac platforms for a year or two, and it's basically a photo viewer. When it's installed, if you've got any photos displayed on a web page, you click on the Cooliris icon, and it turns into this full screen, smooth scrolling thumbnail icon view of all of the photos on the page. With your mouse, you can slide to the left and the right, a bit like an iPhone touch interface. All the photos scroll really smoothly beneath them. You can zoom in and out with the mouse wheel, and it's a brilliant way of browsing photos, and it works really well on the Linux desktop.
How does it know what are photos, and what does it just look at JPEGs and ignore GIFs? Or?
It seems to. I don't know about GIFs specifically, but it obviously plows through the HTML and knows what's what.
Right.
And it's intelligent. If you do it with Google Images, it knows you're looking at Google Image results, and let you page through this interface.
Oh, that's cool.
It's also nice with it's compatible with quite a few PHP web albums. So if you happen to host your own family photos on one of those, and you've got the Cooliris plugin installed, you can browse your whole photo collection using this Cooliris thing. It works with Picasa, Flickr, just normal pages with photos on it. It'll actually browse your local photos as well.
Oh, so if you're accessing like a directory with images in,
yeah. Well, once you've clicked on the plugin inside Firefox, it's got its own kind of GUI. It takes over the whole screen. It's a beautiful interface, and there's a small file manager on the left of the screen. You can browse your local photos if you want to, and it's a really, really nice. It's the best way I've seen actually on the Linux desktop of browsing a large photo collection. It's really smooth. It's nice. You need accelerated hardware graphics.
Oh, right.
And you need Flash 10. But I was running it on a 64-bit version of Linux with the 64-bit alpha Flash, and it runs without any problems.
It's open. It's Ballot. It's the open ballot. Should geeks boycott closed platforms? There's a lot of shiny, tempting gadgetry out there, and Graham, and iPhones, iPod Touches, Xboxes, TiVos, but they're all closed platforms. So should we, as geeks, in the name of freedom, stop using these things? Graham.
Well, I don't think we should judge people who do use closed platforms, and I think anything that anyone can do to try and not use a closed platform is going to help. It's a bit like recycling. Every little bit will help. Every light bulb you turn off will help. Mm-hmm. But I don't think that means that we have to go overzealous and demand that everybody stops using closed platforms. I think any small bit you can do, if you need to, if you want to cancel a certain TV subscription, go ahead. Feel good about it. But I don't think we should. I don't think we should criticise people or make people feel uncomfortable if they're not willing to. It's their choice.
Well, on the TuxRadar comments, Tabo or Tabo or Thabo says, the test I apply with any gadget or software lately is, if it's not open source, can I produce output with it that is compliant with open standards? Can I use my phone as a modem on my Linux desktop, or is the phone forcing me to use Windows on my desktop? So that sounds like a kind of a middle way between them, preferring open standards.
Yeah. I mean, it'd be nice if enough of us could make a difference that, the normal rules of supply and demand would apply, so that people are forced to then make things open. And I suppose the more of us that buy proprietary devices, the less likely that is to happen, and that's the problem we have. What we need is a union.
A union of people.
Yeah.
But Apple still doesn't support OGG.
Yeah.
Which is ludicrous. And still won't support OGG Theora on the new Safari HTML5 stuff.
Yeah, and
and never will, from what we can understand.
And for that reason, I bought a Cowan iAudio player that played OGG Vorbis files. But I still wouldn't want to knock people who happen to have an iPod.
Well, Jack the Hat says, choice. All comes down to choice. No one is forced to buy an Xbox or an iPhone. Most users don't give a stuff if something is open or not. All they care about is that these things work. It would seem that some of these chaps at Linux Format magazine might agree, as I'm sure one of the staff there develops for the Xbox. I think he's talking about
true.
you, Paul.
Hadn't thought of that.
What's your take on that?
So I program everything I possibly can program for. It's that simple. I bought so for a long time, Graham and I were trying not to buy any console because we didn't like the way they were closed source and and we Graham caved in and bought a PS3, or got a PS3 bought for him. Fair enough, that's a good excuse. That I should have tried that. and I wanted one, but it turned out that as a gaming console, the Xbox was better, but it was made by Microsoft, so it's a big problem for me. I don't want to support Microsoft. I held out for a full year, or I think 18 months, and then I think last year finally bought an Xbox 360. But specifically because I could start programming for it. I've bought games for it, and I play some games for it, once every few weeks, whatever. But I write games for it.
Yeah.
I find it great fun to program for.
Yeah, and if that direction was simply closed off to you, the open source community would lose a great deal from you not being able to give stuff back in what you do.
Sure. I mean, my last discovery of the fortnight was the Gloss library I made, which is OpenGL graphics for Pygame, and that steals some of the great ideas from XNA, the Xbox 360 coding system.
Yeah.
It takes the way they've done it, which is very easy, and makes it work on Python, which is very cool. And I'm very glad to be able to do that. And last week I bought an iPhone on Friday when it came out, and because I can code for it. I've already made 3 games for the iPhone because I like to code on things, on different things, on new things, on strange things, because it's fun, and that's my main draw to program on things. So yes, I do write for the Xbox. I've tried porting to Linux, and it didn't work because it was failing from OpenGL problems.
Oh.
I might just open source it anyway and ask the community to fix it. You sort it out. Well, I was actually thinking of porting it to Vala. Because XNA is C#, so I could probably port it to Vala quite easily and make it work. So yes, I do Xbox, I do iPhone.
Anything you can get your hands on, really.
Basically, it's what it comes down to.
You're going to like the new macOS Basic interpreter then. In the TuxRadar comments, Ali says, I'm an open source lover. I think open systems can lead to more transparency and communication, and this is what we need in future. But now I think boycotting the closed systems is a very fundamentalist and ideological act. It is not realistic at all. First off, we should define open systems. Facebook, Twitter and Gmail, Google Mail, are not open systems either. So geeks should not use them. The internet we use is government controlled. We don't have an entire open internet. What do you reckon to that, Andrew?
Well, there was, on a similar note, there was an awesome story on the news last night about the elections in Iran, and they'd uncovered this story that Nokia sold technology to the Iranian government that allows them to filter and to search for texts. And allows them to monitor conversations,
right?
Which sounds awful and terrible.
Yeah.
And the spokesman for Nokia came on the telly and said, "Well, that's the way it works. That's the way all phone systems work. The UK government can do this to your phones. The US government does this. Every single government does it." So boycotting something because it's not perfect is probably counterproductive.
But in a way, don't you think, by using things like iPhones, we're not using the disastrous OpenMoko, or maybe Android or something else that is open and helping support them. If I wasn't doing iPhone apps, surely I'd be doing Android apps or something else.
Well, or if people with large collections of OGG files have a choice between an iPod or a Creative Zen, and go for the Creative Zen every time, then Apple won't feel any demand from its users to implement OGG support. I mean, if people buy iPods as well as anything else, then there will be a steady trickle of user requests.
You'd think so, yeah. But then they managed to sell 1 million of the new iPhones in 3 days.
Who are these credulous sheep?
I know.
Wasting their money on the latest shiny jewels.
How's your new phone, Graham?
It doesn't let you have conversations with more interesting people.
I know.
It's just a phone.
Sure it does, because people come up to you in the street and go, "Hey, you've got an iPhone. You look great."
You've got an iPhone too, Mike?
Yes, yeah. I got one ages ago.
So you mean 3 of the 4 of us have got iPhones?
Yep.
I think
Peer
it's
pressure.
open Ballot, can't
How
it?
has it come to this? I've flagged the flag for freedom.
What is that? Is that an open phone?
Sony Ericsson.
I don't know.
What kind of
Picture of a dog on it.
What memory card format does that use?
I don't know.
Is it Sony Ericsson?
I don't know.
It's in no way open. I think the only open phone is Android, and even that's closed because they can't open it fully, can they? Radio laws and stuff like that.
Some other comments from TuxRadar. Anonymous Penguin says, "I would choose an open system over closed any day of the week. Simply put, there are just more possibilities and creative ideas that follow with open systems. However, closed systems are needed for the wider consumer entertainment market. The Halo and Metal Gear Solid games would still be in planning stage if the powers that be didn't make it their way. So let's all just make them interface. Is that too much to ask? Geez."
Was he asking G's?
Yeah, obviously they would still be in stage 1 planning, wouldn't they? Which is sad. But I think Alien Arena 2009.
Yeah, that was released.
Which is also we talked about last week.
Yeah.
Closed. Thanks, guys. Yeah, I think that's some sort of curse we have, isn't it? Getting complete, finished open source projects done is apparently impossible.
Well, yeah, it's like we said before, version numbers. Window Maker, Window Manager on 0.92 for about 5 years. It works, it's stable, it's very good. Call it 1.0.
So, going back to what's I said previously, Graham, you've got a PS3. I've got an Xbox.
Yeah.
Clearly mine is Microsoft. I have given Microsoft some money.
Yeah.
But yours is closed.
Yeah.
And mine's closed.
Yeah.
Do you feel better? Because you haven't given Microsoft money. Is it better to give some slightly less evil company your money?
Well, I have to admit that yes, yeah, in a small way, but only in a personal way. I think, from talking to you, Microsoft have done a fantastic job with the 360. I think the Xbox Live, don't want it to be an advert, but they've done a lot of things right, and XNA in particular is absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, I told you I did this game and I wanted to add voice chat.
Yeah.
And I was looking, how do you add voice chat? It's really hard. And you don't. It's just add there by default. Everyone gets free voice chat with their games. It just works.
Yeah.
And if you want to see if someone's talking, you just say, "Is person talking?" It's Boolean, true or false. It's really, really easy. It's done a great job.
Sony, in just as many ways, are just as closed. Probably even more so. It's not like anybody could just pick up the PS3 API and start developing games.
Yeah, they've obviously got this closed physical format fetish going on still.
Well, I mean, they won't even open up the graphics hardware to Linux running on the PS3. It's nice that Linux runs on it, but it would have been nicer if you could access the GPU.
But you only get a few of the SPUs as well.
Yeah, you do. Yeah. So, I don't imagine it did any good, and it was probably a little bit naive to think that. I'd have been better off with an Xbox 360. Forget about it.
Do we need open phones? Do we want open phones?
I think they have to reach a certain level of quality. And the thing with the G1 is that it was an HTC based phone, and I've just had an HTC based phone, and I've kind of fallen out of love with it, and it looked very similar in hardware to that, so I wasn't really interested.
The G2 is on the verge of being out.
Yeah,
I was playing it yesterday. It's basically the same thing, just white.
Yeah.
From what I can see.
That was the main reason.
Yeah. Well, it seems to me that Android has a lot of potential for the future.
Yeah, yeah.
It could do some great stuff, and Google are very intent on making it do stuff. I mean, for the iPhone recently, the Palm Pre synced as an iPod. It pretends to be an iPod when it plugs into your iTunes, so it syncs your music.
Cool.
And Apple put a tech note up saying, just as a reminder, it's possible in the future, because iTunes is always evolving, it may break support for applications that aren't actually iPods or iPhones, i.e. Palm, we're coming for you. We'll just flick a switch and break things. Well, they'd like to. And that, I think, is quite scary.
Yeah.
Going out of your way to break things is like Microsoft with VisiCalc of old.
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
I was just going to say.
Lotus 123, sorry. They went out of the way to break applications, and that's actually wrong. And that, I think, means that getting Linux support for these things to work is never going to happen. Because, we get it to work and they change it, get it to work and they change it. Because they'll happily change it just to keep compatibility unique to themselves. That's pathetic.
And if it was Linux, people would be happy that a company had come along and embed itself in one of the applications. If it was working with Amarok, everyone would be pleased.
Yeah.
But it's Apple. Well, that's bad. Bad.
So do we think software is open? Google open platform? Google Mail?
I don't know. Can
No,
you
it's
source
not.
code to it?
No, you can't. No.
You can view source, but it's kind of scrambled up JavaScript, isn't it?
So if you had the source code, would it make Google Mail? Would you need the terabytes of storage and the super fast indexing engine as well?
Yeah, I guess in the end it comes down to convenience. I mean, we can all run webmail on our own servers if we choose to, but we don't.
We should not do, yeah. Because that'd be stupid.
Well, I did for a while.
We run webmail on our Opera.
Yeah, that's true, yeah. And it's convenience with phones as well. Some things I'm willing to have as open. I wouldn't choose a NAS box that wasn't running a version of Linux I couldn't run.
Yeah.
And get access to.
Yeah. Well, that's what I found with the iPhone SDK. I can basically run anything on my iPhone. It doesn't go through the App Store unless I choose to put it through the App Store. So I can stick CC4 emulators or whatever I want on there and do what I like. I can write an OGG player and put it on my iPhone. It doesn't really matter. Apple doesn't care. Only when you try and put it through the App Store do they start caring, and obviously I don't plan to do that with this stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
So I can do what I like. It's just C. It's great.
But Apple have changed their opinion. It was only 18 months ago when they said there wasn't going to be any
I know,
kind
exactly, yeah. That was pretty bad.
Yeah.
You get a completely closed phone, you can make, I think, HTML and JavaScript.
They've made a complete U-turn,
Yeah.
which credit to them, they've seen the potential.
Correct, they have to. And they're minting it now as a result.
500,000 apps.
Yeah,
We've really branched out now.
And with that Apple-sponsored ranting, we come to the end of our podcast, number 11. Thanks for tuning in, folks. We'll see you in 2 more weeks. Or remember the Notes for this podcast on the website, and a fantastic subscription deal at Tygra. Come on, Mike.
Oh, what? What? Sorry, please carry on.
You're just waiting there, staring at the table. It's not going to work. I know you're going to jump in.
How did you know? I was just being polite. My mother always told me to be polite. So, may I
Please do.
interrupt?
Please do.
So I think the listeners are waiting for one more thing.
They're crying out for one more thing.
And here it is. If you've ever tried to unmount a device, like a USB flash key, and you receive a device's busy message, and yet there doesn't appear to be any program accessing the device, here's the solution. Open up a terminal and enter LSOF. This lists open files being accessed, files in use on your system. And have a look through the information you get and look for the mount point of your device, and you'll see which program is still trying to access it. Because a lot of the time you get this when you've got a terminal open in another virtual desktop that's inside the device, like inside /media/disk, and you can't unmount it until you close that terminal. So there you go.
Thank you very much, Mike. I think you've hopefully noticed there have been some complaints about your last one more thing.
Really?
Because people have found that using Control-D saves them about 3 seconds a day. And they've got this gap in their life now. They're not sure what to do with it.
Well,
to provide some sort of filling time to do that.
They can try out all our discoveries of the weeks
in 3 seconds. They can try.
If they group them all together.
Back to the podcast then. And remember, the subscription deal for Linux format is at tinyurl.com/podcastlxf. All the notes are on the website. Check them out. And we'll see you in 2 more weeks. Bye-bye.
Bye.